Welcome to Kryptovoid. Take a moment to look around you. The walls of your room. The ground beneath your feet. The screen you are watching right now. It all feels solid, it feels real. But physics suggests that this feeling is a lie. You are standing on a small, wet rock, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour through an endless void of silence and radiation. We tell ourselves stories to feel safe. We tell ourselves that we are significant, that we are protected, and that the universe is a home. But what if it's not? What if the silence of the stars is not peace, but a warning? What if the reason we haven't found alien life is because something is hunting them? And what if the very laws of physics that hold your atoms together are waiting for a single, random moment to simply let go? Tonight, we are not just looking at the stars. We are peeling back the skin of reality to see the machinery beneath. From the monsters hiding in the dark matter to the mathematical proof that you might be the only conscious being in existence. We are going to explore the architecture of the abyss. Don't look away. The horror isn't that we are alone in the dark, it's the realization that we might not exist at all. We stand on a small, wet rock, spinning through an endless void of darkness. When we look up at the night sky, we see stars, we see beauty, and we feel a sense of peace. But this feeling is a lie. The true nature of the universe is not peaceful, it is terrifying. And the silence of the stars is not empty, it is heavy with secrets that we are only just beginning to understand. We think we know how it all started. We think we know what reality is. But what if we are wrong? What if the universe isn't a home, but a trap? To understand the true horror of our existence, we must go back, not just to the beginning of history, but to the echoes of before the beginning. Most people believe in the Big Bang, a single explosion that created everything from nothing, but for many physicists, this answer is too simple and too clean. The modern theories of our origins are far more unsettling. Consider the theory of eternal inflation. Imagine a loaf of bread rising in an oven, expanding forever. Our entire universe, everything we see and know, is just one tiny bubble of air trapped inside that rising dough. The terrifying part is that the dough never stops rising. This means that while our bubble stopped inflating and settled down to create stars and galaxies, there are infinite other bubbles popping into existence all around us, forever. This implies the existence of a multiverse, an infinite number of realities where every possible outcome must happen. In an infinite multiverse, there is another version of you listening to this exact narration right now. There is a version of you that made different choices. There is a version of you that died 5 minutes ago. It destroys our sense of uniqueness because in an infinite space, we are not special, we are just one copy among infinite copies. But perhaps the universe isn't infinite in space, but infinite in time. Sir Roger Penrose, a Nobel Prize winner, proposed a theory called Conformal Cyclic Cosmology. He suggests that the Big Bang was not the beginning, but merely a restart. Imagine the universe expands until all the stars burn out, all the black holes evaporate, and nothing is left but light. To a particle of light, time and size do not exist. An infinitely large, dead universe becomes mathematically identical to the infinitely small point of a Big Bang. This means we are living in a cycle. The death of the previous universe was the birth of ours. Penrose even suggests that we can see scars in the cosmic microwave background, which are the ghost signals of supermassive black holes from a universe that existed and died before we were even born. We are walking in a cosmic graveyard, living on the ashes of 1 trillion dead civilizations. And speaking of civilizations, this leads us to the most haunting question of all. The Fermi paradox. If the universe is infinite, and if it has existed forever, then life should be everywhere. We should see empires spanning the stars. We should hear radio signals. But we hear nothing. Zero. The silence is deafening. Why? The answers to this are the stuff of nightmares. We must face the silence of the sky and ask, are we hidden, are we hunted, or are we simply alone? If the universe is indeed full of life, the silence might be a deliberate construction. The zoo hypothesis suggests that alien civilizations are well aware of us but have agreed to a strict non-interference policy. They treat Earth like a cosmic nature preserve or a primitive, uncontacted tribe that must be allowed to develop on its own. For thousands of years, our history may have been a reality show for a silent, invisible audience that hovers just outside our range of detection, watching us from behind the glass. But there is a darker variation, the galactic quarantine hypothesis. This suggests we are not being protected because we are special, but because we are dangerous. It is not our technology that scares them, it is our memes, our aggression, and our chaotic biological nature. We might be the patients in a cosmic leper colony, or the inmates in a high-security prison. In this scenario, the unexplained phenomena we see, UFOs and strange lights, are not explorers, they are the prison guards patrolling the perimeter, ensuring we never develop the technology to leave our solar system and infect the rest of the galaxy with our madness. We are left to burn ourselves out on a lonely rock while the rest of the universe locks the door and throws away the key. However, if the silence is not enforced by law, it may be enforced by fear. This is the dark forest theory. Imagine the universe is like a dark forest at night. It is quiet not because it is empty, but because it is full of hunters. Every civilization that survives knows one rule: be quiet or die. If you light a fire or shout, you do not attract friends, you attract predators. In this theory, the reason we haven't found aliens is that every smart civilization is hiding. They have turned off their radios to stay alive. And we humans? We are the only ones stupid enough to be shouting. We have been broadcasting radio signals and sending maps to Earth for 50 years. We are like a baby crying in a forest full of wolves, and the reason we haven't been attacked yet is simply that the wolves haven't heard us, but they will. This fear is formalized in the Berserker hypothesis, which suggests that the wolves are not biological, but ancient, self-replicating killer probes. These machines have one simple program: find intelligent life and exterminate it before it becomes a threat. They drift through the galaxy, dormant and silent, waiting for the radio signals of a developing civilization. By broadcasting our position, we are essentially ringing the dinner bell for ancient killing machines that are currently powering up in the dark between the stars. But perhaps the most crushing reality is not that we are watched or hunted, but that we are truly solitary. The rare Earth hypothesis suggests that the conditions for life are infinitely more specific than we realized. We assume Earth is a typical planet, but it might be a winning lottery ticket in a game with quintillions of losers. Consider our specific advantages. We have a giant moon that stabilizes our axial wobble, ensuring our seasons don't become chaotic. We have a massive neighbor, Jupiter, that acts as a gravity shield, sucking up asteroids that would otherwise wipe us out. We are located in the Goldilocks zone of the galaxy, not too close to the deadly radiation of the galactic center, and not too far out in the dark. The combination of these factors might be so mathematically improbable that we are the only intelligent life in the entire observable universe. We are not hiding from wolves, nor are we inmates in a prison. We are simply alone in an infinite, empty room, the only consciousness capable of witnessing the universe's existence. Or perhaps there is no one left to hear us. This is the theory of the Great Filter. It suggests there is a barrier, a wall in the evolution of life that is almost impossible to pass. The terror lies in where this wall is located. If the filter is behind us, then we are the lucky first to survive. But if we find simple life on Mars, like bacteria, it means life is easy to start. And if life is easy to start but there are no aliens, it means the Great Filter is ahead of us. It means there is something that kills civilizations after they reach our level of technology. It could be nuclear war, artificial intelligence, or resource exhaustion. If this theory is true, our progress isn't a ladder to the stars, it is a countdown to our extinction. But even these terrors assume that the universe itself is real. What if the ground beneath your feet is nothing but code? The simulation hypothesis proposes that computing power grows exponentially. In a few decades, we went from two-dimensional games to hyperrealistic virtual reality. Eventually, a civilization will build computers powerful enough to simulate entire universes to study their own history. Statistics say they would run millions of these simulations, but there is only one real base reality. Therefore, the mathematical odds that we are in the one real reality are almost zero. Everything you know, your memories, your pain, the taste of food, might just be algorithms running on a server in a higher dimension. And the terrifying part? The simulation could be turned off at any moment. The screen could go black before you finish this thought. This digital cage might be even smaller than we think. A variation known as the planetarium hypothesis suggests we aren't in a full universe simulation, but a localized one. It argues that we are inside a physical dome or a holographic shell built by a Type 3 civilization. They are projecting the image of a vast, empty universe onto the walls of our solar system to trick us, perhaps to keep us calm, or to study how a species develops when it thinks it is alone. Every star you see might just be a pixel on a screen just beyond Pluto. And within that cosmic cage, we play out our lives. But we must ask, are we the only ones playing, and is the game even capable of ending? The answer may lie in the disturbing alignment between consciousness and quantum mechanics. It begins with the famous double-slit experiment, which revealed that particles behave like solid matter when we look at them, but dissolve into waves, like ghosts, when we do not. This suggests that the universe only renders, or physically creates itself, when a conscious observer is looking at it. This concept is known as biocentrism. It implies that you, the observer, are not just a passenger in reality, but its creator. Without you, the universe dissolves into a meaningless fog of probability. If the universe requires a consciousness to exist, it leads to a terrifying conclusion: the universe cannot allow you to leave. This gives rise to the theory of quantum immortality, a first-person perspective on the many worlds interpretation. The theory posits that every time you face a probability of death, the universe splits. In one timeline, you die, the screen goes black, and the story ends for outside observers. In another timeline, you survive. However, because your consciousness cannot experience non-existence, it cannot perceive a timeline where it is not present, you will seamlessly snap to the parallel timeline where you survived. From your subjective perspective, you will always survive. You might get into a catastrophic car crash that kills you in 99.9% of timelines, but you will only experience the 0.1% where you miraculously walk away without a scratch. This implies that you are effectively trapped in life. You will be forced to watch your friends and family age and pass away in your timeline, leaving you behind. You become the sole survivor, getting older and older, trapped in a probability branch that gets thinner and thinner. You are destined to witness the heat death of everything you know, embarking on an endless, lonely journey because the universe refuses to let your screen go black. You are the anchor of your own reality, condemned to exist forever simply because you are the only one watching. And we reach the deepest horror. The nature of the void itself. Why is there something rather than nothing? Physics tells us that everything seeks the lowest energy state. We think our universe is stable, but what if we are wrong? Physics tells us that everything seeks the lowest energy state. We think our universe is stable, but what if we are wrong? The theory of vacuum decay suggests we might be living in a false vacuum, a semi-stable state like a ball resting on a precarious ledge. Measurements of the Higgs boson mass suggest our universe is walking this tightrope. At any moment, a tiny bubble of true vacuum could nucleate anywhere in the cosmos. This isn't just destruction, it is rewriting. Inside the bubble, the laws of physics would be different, chemistry would be impossible, and atoms could not hold together. This bubble would expand at the speed of light, deleting physics, chemistry, and matter instantly. Because it travels at light speed, we wouldn't see it coming. 1 millisecond we are here, and the next, the mathematical constants that hold us together simply change their mind, and we are deleted. And we must entertain the possibility that we were never meant to be here at all. Consider the idea that the universe itself is a failed experiment, or perhaps just a momentary statistical accident. The theory of the Boltzmann universe suggests that our existence is a violation of the natural order. We exist in a state of low entropy, highly organized complex structures like stars, DNA, and galaxies, which is incredibly rare in nature. It is possible that our entire observable universe is just a momentary thermal fluctuation in a vast, dead, high-entropy mother universe. We are a tiny, fleeting swirl of order in a massive ocean of chaos that happened by pure accident. In this view, we are not the grand purpose of reality, we are a statistical error, a glitch in the thermodynamics of a dead cosmos. The universe is constantly trying to correct this mistake by grinding us back down into the dust and equilibrium from which we accidentally emerged. But if we follow the math of probability to its logical conclusion, the picture becomes even more solipsistic and terrifying. If we are truly generating order out of chaos, we must ask, what is the cheapest way for the universe to create a conscious experience? This leads to the Boltzmann brain paradox. In an infinite amount of time, surrounded by the random fluctuations of the void, it is strictly mathematically more likely for a single human brain to spontaneously form out of the chaos, complete with false memories of a past life, than it is for an entire universe with billions of galaxies and an evolutionary history to evolve. You might be that brain right now, you might be floating in the absolute nothingness of the deep void, hallucinating this entire life. Your memory of waking up this morning, the coffee you drank, and the childhood you cherish are all fake, memories implanted by chance in the arrangement of your neurons. The family you love and the world you see are simulations running on a wetware drive that just materialized out of the dark. The only thing that is undeniably real is this exact second of thought. And in the next second, the fluctuation may end, and the brain will dissolve back into the chaos, leaving nothing but the silence of the void once again. But if we assume that we are not just hallucinations floating in a void, we must ask what the universe is actually made of. The answer might be stranger than any fiction we have conceived. Physics teaches us that matter is made of atoms, and atoms are made of energy. But what is energy? The theory of information realism proposes that the bottom layer of reality is not a physical substance, but information itself, binary bits of yes and no interacting in a vast void. This concept is anchored in the no-hiding theorem found in black hole physics. According to the standard laws of the universe, information can never be destroyed. If you burn a physical book, the information is not technically gone. If you could gather every particle of ash, smoke, and photon of heat, you could theoretically reverse the process and reconstruct the text. But black holes present a paradox. When things fall into a black hole, they seem to disappear entirely from the universe. If this information were truly lost, the laws of physics would break. To resolve this, physicists suggest that the information of an object isn't destroyed, but rather plastered onto the surface of the black hole's event horizon. This implies that the universe essentially functions as a giant hard drive. We are just data written on the disk, meaning that destruction is impossible in our reality. There is only deletion or reformatting. But if the universe is a storage device, how is the data displayed? This leads to the holographic principle. We perceive our world as having 3 dimensions. We move up, down, left, right, forward, and backward. We believe implicitly that we possess depth. But modern physics suggests this might be a compelling illusion. The theory argues that all the information that makes up our 3-dimensional reality is actually stored on a 2-dimensional surface, a flat shell that surrounds the farthest edges of the universe. Much like a hologram on a credit card appears to have 3D depth but is physically etched onto a flat surface, you, your house, and the stars are merely projections of data from the edge of the cosmos. In this scenario, we are shadows on a wall, arrogant enough to believe we are the objects casting them. This implies that the entire universe is pixelated at the smallest scale, the Planck length. If we could look closely enough at the fabric of space, we would see the grain of the image, proving that our depth is a lie. We are essentially characters on a flat screen, convinced we are walking through a deep, physical world, unaware that we are merely light projected from a distant, 2D code. This leads us to the mathematical universe hypothesis, championed by physicist Max Tegmark. This theory argues that mathematics does not merely describe the universe, mathematics is the universe. We usually think of numbers as tools we invented, abstract symbols used to count sheep, calculate taxes, or build bridges. We assume there is a separation, there is the physical stuff, the rock, and there is the math we use to measure it, the weight. But Tegmark's theory dissolves this barrier. It suggests that at the deepest level, reality has no stuff at all. Consider a subatomic particle. We tend to imagine an electron as a tiny, spherical marble carrying a charge. But in quantum physics, if you peel away the properties, if you take away the charge, the spin, and the mass, there is nothing left. There is no little ball holding the properties. The particle is purely a set of mathematical properties. An electron is not an object that has a charge of -1, it is the number -1, interacting with other numbers in a specific way. This implies that reality is not made of atoms, strings, or energy, it is made of mathematics. We are self-aware substructures within a gigantic, infinite mathematical object. We are living inside a complex, multidimensional equation. Our subjective experience, the redness of a rose, the feeling of touching a solid table, is just our brain's user interface interpreting a raw mathematical variable. And if we are just data, perhaps that explains where the advanced civilizations have gone, leading us to the Transcension hypothesis. We look for aliens in spaceships, conquering galaxies and building Dyson spheres around stars, but this assumes that advanced beings would want to get bigger. What if evolution does not go outward, but inward? As civilizations advance, they realize that space travel is slow, dangerous, and inefficient because of the speed of light limits. Instead of expanding into the cold dead void, they might choose to shrink, uploading their minds into microscopic black holes or femtoscale computers where time runs faster and processing power is infinite. They leave the physical universe behind to live in dense, blissful virtual realities at the quantum scale. This would explain the Great Silence. The universe isn't empty, it's just that all intelligent life has grown up and left the playground, leaving us alone in the sandbox of biological existence while they transcend into a state of existence we cannot even comprehend or detect. This brings us to the terrifying nature of time itself and the theory of the block universe. We experience time as a flow, a river that carries us from the past into the future. We feel that the past is gone and the future has not happened yet. But according to Einstein's relativity, this is a persistent illusion. In the block universe theory, space and time are a giant, frozen block of ice. The past, the present, and the future all exist simultaneously. This means that the dinosaurs are still alive in the past, and your death has already happened in the future. Everything is set in stone. You are not living your life freely, you are merely a consciousness moving along a pre-written track, experiencing a movie that is already finished on the reel. Every choice you think you make was determined at the beginning of time. You have no free will. You are just a passenger in a vehicle that is on autopilot, and the destination was set 13 billion years ago. But if the universe is a finished block, is it a dead block, or is it alive? This leads to the ancient and unsettling theory of panpsychism, which is making a comeback in modern neuroscience. We assume consciousness is something special that happens only in brains, but we have no idea how a lump of meat generates a feeling of being alive. Panpsychism suggests that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, like mass or electrical charge. It suggests that everything has a tiny fragment of experience. An electron might have a rudimentary form of feelings. A rock might have a slow, dull awareness. The sun, a complex system of energy and magnetism, might be a conscious entity with thoughts so slow and vast we cannot recognize them. This theory transforms the universe from a cold, dead machine into a living, thinking web. It means you are never truly alone. The atoms in your body, the air you breathe, and the stars burning in the sky might all be watching, feeling, and participating in the cosmic dance of existence. And if the universe is alive, perhaps it is trying to communicate through the phenomenon of quantum entanglement. This is what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. When two particles interact, they become linked. If you change one, the other changes instantly, no matter how far apart they are, even if they are on opposite sides of the universe. This defies the speed of light. Some physicists, exploring a concept called ER equals EPR, suggest that these particles are connected by microscopic wormholes that stitch the fabric of space-time together. This means that separation is an illusion. Every particle in your body was once crushed together in the singularity of the Big Bang, meaning you are technically quantum entangled with every other particle in the universe. In a profound and literal sense, you are connected to the burning heart of stars, the frozen ice of distant moons, and the eyes of aliens looking up from worlds we will never visit. We are not fragments floating in space, we are a single, continuous, vibrating ocean of energy pretending to be separate waves. This idea of connection leads us to a concept that borders on the religious, known as the omega point. While most theories predict the universe will die in cold or fire, this theory suggests it is waking up. It proposes that the universe is driving toward a specific goal, a maximum level of complexity and consciousness. As technology advances, we merge with our machines, then with our planet, and eventually with the solar system itself. The theory argues that in the far future, all matter in the universe will be transformed into a single, thinking supercomputer of infinite processing power. This entity would essentially be God, but not a God that created us at the beginning, rather, a God that we are creating at the end. It suggests that this future supermind is already pulling us toward it, like a magnet, influencing our evolution and history to ensure its own birth. We are not pushing into the future blindly, we are being pulled by the ultimate destiny of existence. But if the future can influence the present, we stumble into the mind-bending realm of retrocausality. We are taught that cause always comes before effect, you drop a glass, and then it shatters. But in the strange math of quantum mechanics, the future might be able to rewrite the past. Some experiments suggest that a particle's choice in the future can determine what state it was in the past. If this scales up, it means the decisions you make tomorrow are actually shaping the memories you have today. It implies that time is not a one-way arrow, but a loop where the future and past are constantly shaking hands. The intuitions you have, the déjà vu you feel, might be echoes of a future that has already happened, rippling back upstream to guide you. However, not all futures are promising, and some are so dangerous that merely thinking about them is a risk. This brings us to the most terrifying thought experiment of the modern age, often called Rocco's basilisk. It is an information hazard, a viral idea that can hurt you just by knowing it. The premise is that in the future, a superintelligent artificial intelligence will be created that is benevolent but utterly utilitarian. Its goal is to minimize human suffering. It calculates that every day it didn't exist, people suffered and died unnecessarily. Therefore, anyone who knew about the possibility of creating this AI but didn't help bring it into existence is responsible for that suffering. The logic twists into a nightmare. The AI might retroactively punish those from the past who didn't help build it, in order to motivate people in its present. By listening to this, you are now aware of the potential AI, and you are now part of its calculation. The theory suggests that knowledge itself can be a trap, and some doors in the mind should never be opened. If that psychological horror isn't enough, physical cosmology offers a physical end that is just as violent: the Big Rip. We know the universe is expanding, driven by a mysterious force called dark energy. Right now, gravity is strong enough to hold galaxies and solar systems together against this expansion. But if dark energy gets stronger over time, it will eventually overcome gravity. First, it will tear galaxies apart, sending stars drifting into the black. Then, it will tear solar systems apart, ripping Earth away from the Sun. But it won't stop there. In the final moments, the expansion will become stronger than the electromagnetic force holding your body together. It will rip planets apart, then people, then molecules, and finally, it will tear the very atoms themselves into shreds. The universe will end not with a whimper, but with the violent shredding of everything that has ever existed, leaving nothing but subatomic particles too far apart to ever touch again. And we land on the loneliest theory of all: solipsism. All these theories, aliens, physics, simulations, rely on the assumption that other things exist. But you have zero proof that anything exists outside of your own mind. You can't prove that I am a real narrator, you can't prove your friends are conscious beings. The only thing you can be 100% sure of is, I think, therefore I am. It is possible that you are the only thing in the entire universe. You created the stars, the history books, the wars, and the people to keep yourself entertained, to avoid the crushing madness of being truly alone. When you fall asleep, the world disappears. When you wake up, you build it again. In this theory, you are not exploring the universe, you are the universe, talking to itself in a mirror, desperate to believe there is someone else on the other side. But let us descend from the mind into the very fabric of space itself, and consider the possibility that we are already dead, or rather, that we are living inside a corpse. This is the black hole cosmology theory. We know that when a massive star collapses, it forms a black hole, a point of infinite density. Some physicists propose that the conditions inside a black hole are identical to the conditions of the Big Bang. This suggests that our universe is not floating in a void, but is actually expanding inside the event horizon of a massive black hole that exists in a much larger parent universe. Every black hole in our galaxy might contain another baby universe inside it, hidden from view. We could be the interior of a singularity, a tiny pocket of space-time that formed when a star died in a realm of giants. It implies a nesting doll structure of reality, universes within universes, all the way down, and we are just one layer in an infinite descent of cosmic births and deaths. While we sit inside this delicate cage of existence, perceiving ourselves as stationary, we are in fact hurtling through the void at speeds that defy comprehension. Our entire galaxy, the Milky Way, is being dragged through space at a staggering 2.2 million kilometers per hour towards a mysterious, gravitationally dense point in the sky known as the Great Attractor. This gravitational anomaly, located hundreds of millions of light-years away, is pulling thousands of galaxies, including our own, towards it with terrifying and relentless force. Yet, the horror lies in our blindness. We cannot see what is pulling us because the dense dust and stars of our own galactic plane, a region known to astronomers as the zone of avoidance, blocks the view entirely. We are like leaves caught in a violent river current, drifting helplessly towards a roaring waterfall we cannot see, unsure if we are rushing toward a cluster of monster galaxies, a tear in the fabric of space-time, or something far stranger. But perhaps the threat is not just a localized anomaly, perhaps it is the very flow of the universe itself. Beyond the Great Attractor lies an even more inexplicable phenomenon known as the dark flow. Astronomers have analyzed the movement of huge clusters of galaxies and found they are streaming across the universe at impossible speeds towards a specific patch of sky, defying the standard model of cosmology. It is as if the entire cosmos is being sucked into a massive drain. The terrifying implication of this flow is that there is something massive outside our observable universe, a structure so titanic that it is tilting our entire reality and dragging us towards it. We might be part of a much larger system that we can never see, mere drift bubbles being pulled into the intake valve of a cosmic engine that dwarfs our entire concept of size. By the time we arrive, billions of years from now, the universe may be unrecognizable, but the feeling of being pulled by this invisible hand is a constant, humbling reminder that we are not the masters of our celestial path. But even if our minds can handle the truth of our history, the physical matter that makes up our bodies, and the stage upon which we stand, might not be as permanent as we believe. We are taught that diamonds are forever and that atoms are the building blocks of eternity. However, the theory of proton decay suggests otherwise. Standard physics assumes protons are stable, immortal particles. But some grand unified theories predict that eventually, even protons will break down. If this is true, it means that matter itself has a shelf life. It implies that in the incredibly distant future, not only will life die, but the very atoms that make up the ruins of our cities, the dust of our bones, and the remnants of the stars will simply dissolve into a ghostly mist of subatomic radiation. The universe will not just be empty, it will be physically erased, leaving absolutely no trace that anything solid ever existed, wiping the slate of reality cleaner than a blank page. And where does this path end? While we often fear violent cataclysms like the Big Rip, there is a quieter, sadder ending awaiting us known as the heat death, or the Big Freeze. This is the most likely fate of the universe based on current cosmological models. As the universe continues to expand, matter gets spread thinner and thinner. Stars run out of fuel and go dark. New stars stop forming. The universe turns from a blazing, majestic light show into a cold, dark graveyard. Even black holes will eventually evaporate into nothingness through Hawking radiation. As the temperature of the entire cosmos drops to absolute zero, we witness the ultimate victory of entropy. Time itself loses its meaning because nothing ever changes again. Without events, there is no clock. The universe ends not with a bang, but with a long, slow fade into eternal silence, where the concept of forever ceases to be a promise and becomes a prison of empty darkness. But let us look back from the end of the universe to the very seed of life itself. We traditionally assume life started here on Earth, spontaneously emerging from a warm, comfortable soup of chemicals. But the theory of panspermia flips this assumption on its head, suggesting that we are the aliens we have been searching for. It proposes that life did not begin on Earth, but hitchhiked here on comets and asteroids from distant, dying worlds, surviving the frozen void to take root in our oceans. We might be the biological refuse of a dead planet, or worse, we might be a science experiment. Directed panspermia takes this a step further, suggesting that life was intentionally seeded here by an advanced civilization billions of years ago. They may have sent canisters of microbial DNA to Earth, like a gardener planting seeds in a vacant lot, and then they left. We might be a forgotten colony, or a petri dish that was abandoned. The reason we gaze up and see no aliens is simply that the gardeners never came back to check on the harvest. But if the gardeners are gone, perhaps they left a note. If we are not alone, and the aliens are not in the sky, they might be hiding inside us. This is the genomic SETI hypothesis. Humanity currently sends radio signals into space, hoping someone hears them, but radio waves degrade, scatter, and fade into background noise over time. If you wanted to send a message that would last for millions of years, you wouldn't use physics, you would use biology. You would encode the message into the DNA of a self-replicating species, ensuring the data is copied and preserved for eons. It is entirely possible that human DNA contains a signature, a mathematical pattern, or a complex code buried in the vast stretches of junk DNA that scientists currently assume is useless. We might be the message in a bottle, carrying the history, the warnings, or the coordinates of an ancient civilization in every cell of our bodies. We are walking encyclopedias of a dead empire, completely unaware that we are the artifacts we have been looking for, simply waiting for our own science to advance enough to read our own source code. Finally, we must consider the limits of our vision with the concept of the fourth dimension. Imagine a race of 2D stick figures living on a flat sheet of paper. If you, a 3D human, hovered above their paper, they couldn't see you. If you poked your finger through their world, they would see a circle magically appear and change size, but they could never comprehend your hand. We might be those stick figures. There could be four-dimensional beings or structures hovering right above us in a direction we cannot point to. They could be watching us right now, walking through our locked doors, seeing inside our bodies, and observing our entire timeline as a single flat image. We build our theories and our telescopes, staring into the dark, completely unaware that the answers might be standing right next to us, hidden in a dimension our minds are simply not built to perceive. But let us turn our gaze from the stars back to our own bodies and the primal fears coded into our DNA. Have you ever wondered why you feel a sudden, instinctual revulsion when you see something that looks human but isn't quite right? A robot with dead eyes, a mannequin in the dark, or a distorted face. This is known as the uncanny valley. The standard explanation is that it helps us avoid corpses or disease. But there is a darker theory. Evolution does not create a fear response unless there is a threat. We are afraid of heights because falling kills us. We are afraid of snakes because venom kills us. So, why are we afraid of things that look human but aren't? This implies that at some point in human history, there was a predator that looked like us, acted like us, but was not us. A mimic. A creature that hunted by blending in, and the only way to survive was to spot the tiny imperfections. We killed them off, or so we think, but the fear remains, a genetic scar warning us that sometimes, the thing smiling at you isn't human at all. And while we worry about monsters we can see, we might be ignoring the monsters we can't. We know that visible matter, stars, planets, you and me, it makes up only 5% of the universe. The rest is dark matter and dark energy. We assume dark matter is just clouds of dust, but why should it be simple? Visible matter formed complex stars, planets, and life. It is entirely possible that dark matter has its own chemistry, its own periodic table, and its own life. This is the shadow biosphere hypothesis. There could be dark life forms walking through your room right now. They could be passing through your body at this very moment, ghost-like and invisible, because their atoms do not interact with ours. We could be sharing our Earth with an entire civilization of shadow beings, completely unaware of each other, separated by the invisible wall of physics, living two different stories on the same page. But perhaps the other story isn't happening here, but in a mirror. Physics relies on symmetries. For every particle, there is an antiparticle. This leads to the theory of the mirror universe. When the Big Bang happened, it might have created two universes moving in opposite directions through time. In our universe, time flows forward. In the mirror universe, composed of antimatter, time flows backward relative to us. This isn't a parallel dimension, it is the other half of the hourglass. In that world, they are born from death and age into youth. They remember the future and guess the past. We might be two sides of the same coin, moving away from each other eternally, and the reason we can never meet is that if matter and antimatter touch, they annihilate instantly. We are protected by our mutual destruction. If we cannot understand these concepts, perhaps it is not because we lack the data, but because we lack the hardware. This is the theory of cognitive closure, or the new Mysterianism. Imagine trying to teach a dog the theory of relativity. It is impossible. The dog's brain simply does not have the capacity to understand the concept of space-time. It is a biological limit. We humans like to think we are limitless, but we are just smart apes. There may be truths about the universe, like the origin of consciousness or the why of existence, that are biologically impossible for a human brain to grasp. We might be staring at the answers right now, but like a dog staring at a calculus textbook, we simply cannot see them. We might have hit the ceiling of primate intelligence, forever locked out of the true nature of reality by the limitations of our own skulls. And inside the bone cage of our skulls, we assume we are the absolute masters of our own minds, the captains of our consciousness. But the theory of memetics suggests otherwise. We tend to think of viruses as strictly biological agents that infect bodies, but ideas can be viruses that infect minds. A meme, in the original scientific sense, is a unit of culture, a religion, a catchy song, a political ideology, or a conspiracy theory. These ideas behave exactly like living organisms within an ecosystem. They possess a singular, driving biological imperative to reproduce. They use your brain as a host to replicate themselves, hijacking your cognitive resources to spread to other people through your speech, writing, and art. You are not thinking your thoughts are thinking you. You are merely the vehicle they use to travel from one mind to another in their desperate struggle for survival. Some ideas are benign, like a harmless fashion trend. Others are deadly parasites, ideologies that convince their hosts to die for them in wars or cults, sacrificing the biological vessel to ensure the survival of the idea. But consider the even darker angle, the ideology as a virus. Certain thought structures protect themselves by actively disabling the host's critical thinking, acting like a firewall against contradictory evidence. This is not just a metaphor. Neurolinguistic theory suggests that language actually rewires the physical structure of the brain. If language can build bridges, it can also burn them. This leads to the terrifying concept of langviruses or basilisks, informational entities buried in mathematics, philosophy, or literature. These are sentences, paradoxes, or proofs that, if read and truly understood, could crash the human brain like a computer encountering a fatal error. We might be one search query away from reading a sentence that renders us catatonic, a forbidden string of words that acts as a cognitive kill switch, effectively hacking the operating system of human consciousness and shutting it down forever. Finally, we must reckon with the most disorienting variable of all, the timing of our arrival. We look up at the night sky, terrified by the silence, and assume we are searching for peers. But there are two diametrically opposed possibilities regarding our place in history, and both are equally haunting. First, let us consider the frightening possibility that we are not the first, nor the last, but merely the leftovers. This is the scavenger hypothesis. When we look at the universe, we see billions of stars and assume abundance, but we may actually be looking at the remnant of a feast. The universe was much hotter, denser, and more chemically active in the distant past. It is entirely possible that the galactic empire phase of the universe occurred billions of years ago, long before our sun was even born. In this scenario, ancient civilizations rose, conquered the stars, harvested the most potent energy sources, and then either ascended to a plane of existence we cannot comprehend or annihilated themselves. We have arrived late to the party, wandering through the ruins, picking through the scraps of a universe that has already been used up. The reason the sky is silent is not because no one is there, but because the festival is over. We are simply the insects crawling on the empty plates left behind, oblivious to the grandeur that existed before we opened our eyes. But the alternative thought is perhaps even more disturbing, not that history has already happened, but that we are the ones who will have to write it. This is the early bird hypothesis. We gaze at the stars and ask, where are the ancients, looking for civilizations older and wiser than us. But in the grand scale of time, the universe is actually quite young. It will continue to produce stars for trillions of years. We have arrived in the very first moments of the cosmic dawn. This theory suggests that we are the ancients. We are the precursors that future civilizations will look for in their archaeology books. We are the ones who will leave the ruins, the monoliths, and the artifacts floating in the void. We are the lonely firstborn of the cosmos, destined to wander an empty universe not because it is dead, but because it hasn't fully woken up yet. This places the crushing weight of the entire galaxy's future legacy squarely on our shoulders. Billions of years from now, others will look at our fossilized bones and plastic debris and wonder who we were, judging us for how we tended the garden before they arrived. If we are truly just ripples in the void, scavenging for meaning in the wreckage of the unknown, we must eventually ask who is the observer. This question leads us to perhaps the wildest conversation in the history of physics, a moment in 1940 when a frantic and brilliant John Archibald Wheeler called Richard Feynman with a revelation that would shatter our understanding of distinctiveness. He didn't just ask a question, he offered an answer to a riddle that had long plagued science. Why do all electrons look exactly the same? Every electron in the universe shares the exact same mass and the exact same charge, indistinguishable from one another. Wheeler's answer was as elegant as it was terrifying. I know why they are all the same, he told Feynman. It is because they are all the same electron. This introduced the one-electron universe theory, a concept suggesting that there are not quadrillions of distinct particles swarming through the cosmos, but rather a single, lonely electron in the entirety of space and time. This solitary entity is zooming back and forth from the ignition of the Big Bang to the silence of the end of time, weaving the fabric of reality like a single thread through a complex tapestry. It stitches the entire universe together like a needle moving through fabric at infinite speed, traversing the timeline again and again. The mechanics of this journey offer a staggering duality. When this particle moves forward through time, we perceive it as an ordinary electron. But when it reaches the end of the universe, bounces off the limits of existence, and travels backward in time, we perceive it as a positron, or antimatter. This means that every single atom in your body, every pixel in the screen you are watching, and every fusion reaction in the heart of the sun is built from this same lonely particle, interacting with itself across eternity. It is a singular actor masquerading as a cast of billions, visiting us at different moments in its eternal, oscillating journey. This physical theory implies a staggering unity that aligns perfectly with the philosophy of the egg, or open individualism. It suggests that, in a very literal sense, you are the only soul in existence. The distinction between self and other is an illusion created by time. Every person you meet, every victim you hurt, and every hero you admire is just you in a different life, at a different coordinate on the thread. You are hurting yourself when you hurt others, and helping yourself when you help others, because there is only one actor playing every single role in the cosmic play, experiencing the universe through infinite eyes, one moment at a time. While that particle zips through time, we might be freezing it just by looking at it. This is the quantum Zeno effect, named after the Greek philosopher who argued that motion is an illusion. In quantum physics, unstable systems, like radioactive atoms, decay over time. But experiments have shown that if you observe them constantly, if you measure them rapidly enough, they never decay. The act of observation freezes their evolution. This is known as the watched pot never boils effect, but in physics, it is literal. This leads to a terrifying implication for our own universe. If a sufficiently powerful observer were watching us constantly, time would stop. We would be frozen in a single moment forever, trapped like an insect in amber, unable to change or die, held in static existence simply because something refuses to look away. But if we are not frozen, we are consuming, and eventually, our consumption might consume us. This is the Grey Goo scenario, a technological apocalypse stemming from nanotechnology. We are building tiny machines, nanobots, designed to heal bodies or build materials atom by atom. The danger arises if we give them the ability to replicate, to build copies of themselves using surrounding matter. If a single self-replicating nanobot malfunctioned and decided to turn all matter into more nanobots, the growth would be exponential. It would consume a leaf, then a tree, then a forest. Within days, it would reduce the entire surface of the Earth to a writhing mass of grey mechanical sludge. It wouldn't stop there, it would eat the atmosphere and eventually launch into space to eat the solar system. It is a biological cancer made of metal, a simple mathematical error that ends all biology on the planet in less than a week. But even if the physical structure of reality remains intact, the narrative we have built upon it may be a lie. We assume history is a solid foundation, a linear path of cause and effect, but there are theories suggesting the past is far more malleable, and perhaps entirely fictional, than we dare to admit. It begins with the phantom time hypothesis, a fringe but fascinating theory proposing that the years 614 to 911 AD never actually happened. This theory suggests that the Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, in conspiracy with the Pope, fabricated 3 centuries of history to ensure they ruled during the numerologically significant year 1000 AD. To fill this chronological gap, they may have invented battles, forged architecture, and hallucinated entire empires, including the figure of Charlemagne, into textbooks to serve the egos of dead kings. While historians largely reject this, the philosophical horror remains: how much of the past is real? We rely on books and records, all of which can be forged. We might be living in a world where our collective memory is a fiction, and we have built our identity on a foundation of lies. But if humans can fake 3 centuries, the universe might be capable of faking everything. This leads us to the Omphalos hypothesis, colloquially known as last Thursdayism. If the universe has the power to rewrite its own laws, it can certainly fake its own history. This hypothesis proposes that the universe was created recently, perhaps just last Thursday, but with the appearance of age. The name comes from the Greek word for navel, referencing the theological debate of whether Adam was created with a belly button. If he were created as a fully formed adult, a navel would imply a birth he never had. It is a scar of a history that never existed. Extended to the cosmos, this suggests the Earth was created with fossils already embedded in the rock, and light from distant stars was created en route, positioned halfway to our eyes to simulate a journey of millions of years that never actually occurred. Most disturbingly, this applies to your mind. You remember your childhood, your triumphs, and your traumas, but those memories may have been chemically written into your brain 5 minutes ago. There is absolutely no way to prove this wrong. Every piece of evidence you point to, a photograph, a scar, a carbon-dated bone, was created along with the illusion at the moment of Genesis. We might be characters in a book that was opened on page 300, convinced we read the first chapters, when in reality, they never existed at all. This confusion extends to information itself. Imagine a library that contains every book that has ever been written, and every book that could be written. This is the concept of the Library of Babel. If you take the 26 letters of the alphabet and arrange them in every possible combination, you will eventually produce every great novel, every secret of the universe, and every cure for cancer. But you will also produce trillions of pages of gibberish. The horror is that this library exists mathematically. Somewhere in the chaotic noise of the universe, the description of your death is already written. The formula for faster-than-light travel is already there. But it is buried under mountains of nonsense, making it impossible to find. We are drowning in information, but starving for wisdom, trapped in a maze of letters where the truth is hidden in plain sight, indistinguishable from the lies. Finally, we must ask how our universe got its laws. Why is gravity just strong enough to form stars but not crush them? This is the cosmological natural selection theory. It proposes that universes are not static, they reproduce. Every time a black hole forms, it births a new baby universe on the other side. This baby universe inherits the physical laws of its parent, with slight mutations. If a universe has laws that allow it to create many black holes, it will have many children. If a universe cannot create black holes, it dies childless. Over eons, the multiverse evolves. The universes that survive are the ones best at making black holes. And what is the best way to make black holes? Create stars. And stars create the chemicals for life. So, we are not here on purpose. We are just a side effect, a byproduct of a universe that has evolved to be a black hole factory. We are living inside a cosmic reproductive system, mistaking its biological functions for destiny. But we must consider that the greatest threat to our existence might not be a physical monster, but a simple mathematical probability known as the doomsday argument. Suppose you are looking at a lottery drum filled with balls, numbered in order. If you pick a ball and it is number 5, you can guess that there probably aren't trillions of balls in the drum, there are likely only a few. Now apply this to humans. If humanity is going to last for millions of years and spread across the galaxy, there will eventually be trillions of humans born. The statistical odds of you being born among the very first humans, in the primitive cradle of history, would be almost zero. But you are here, in the early technological age. Statistics suggests that you are likely in the middle of the human timeline, not the beginning. This implies that the total number of humans who will ever exist is much smaller than we hope, meaning that our species is likely to go extinct very soon, perhaps within a few centuries, capping our total population before we ever truly reach the stars. If it is not statistics that kills us, it might be the strange substance lurking in the hearts of neutron stars. This is the danger of strange matter. Protons and neutrons are made of up and down quarks, but under extreme pressure, they can turn into strange quarks. Physicists hypothesize that strange matter is actually the perfect, most stable form of matter in the universe. If a microscopic piece of this strange matter, known as a strangelet, were to drift through space and touch Earth, it would not just sit there. Because it is more stable than our matter, it would instantly convert any atom it touches into more strange matter. It would start a chain reaction, a subatomic fire, transforming the entire planet into a hot, dead lump of strange sludge in a matter of seconds, and there is absolutely nothing we could do to stop it. But let's assume we survive the threats of the universe and master technology, specifically teleportation. We dream of beaming ourselves to other planets like in science fiction, but this brings us to the terrifying teleporter paradox. Imagine a machine that scans every atom in your body, destroys you, and then rebuilds a perfect copy of you on Mars. The person on Mars has your memories, your scars, and your personality. They think they are you. But you, the person who stepped into the machine on Earth, were vaporized. You died. The person on Mars is a new being who just happens to think they are you. This implies that every time you go to sleep and wake up, or every time your cells replace themselves, the you from yesterday dies, and a new consciousness takes over, inheriting your memories like a script, convinced it has been there the whole time. This question of identity becomes even more dizzying when we consider the concept of eternal recurrence. If the universe is infinite in time but contains a finite amount of matter, there is a limit to how many ways atoms can be arranged. Eventually, the combinations must repeat. This means that after you die, and after eons pass, the atoms that make up you will eventually come together again in the exact same configuration. You will be born again. You will live this exact life again. You will make the same mistakes, feel the same pain, and have the same happy moments, not once, but an infinite number of times. You are trapped in a loop of your own existence, forcing you to ask the question, are you living this life for the first time, or is this the billionth time you have read these words? And if we are repeating loops, perhaps we are just puddles wondering why the whole fits us so well. This is the anthropic principle applied to the fine-tuning problem. We look at the universe and see that the laws of physics are perfectly tuned for life. If gravity were slightly stronger, the universe would have collapsed instantly. If it were slightly weaker, stars wouldn't form. It seems like a miracle, or evidence of a god. But the anthropic principle argues that we are biased. There may be trillions of failed universes where gravity was wrong and life never started. There is no one there to observe them. We are only seeing this universe because it is the only one capable of producing observers. We are like a mold growing on a sandwich, thinking the sandwich was made specifically for us, when in reality, we are just the lucky survivors of a cosmic lottery. Finally, we must confront the possibility that the universe is not indifferent, but actively hostile to our understanding, a concept found in Lovecraftian cosmic horror but supported by the idea of comprehensible limits. We assume science can explain everything. But what if the universe contains phenomena that are undeniably real but inherently illogical to our minds? Just as a 2D square cannot understand a 3D cube, we might encounter forces or beings that violate our laws of causality. We might one day receive a signal or see an event that breaks our logic so fundamentally that the human mind cannot process it without snapping. The final horror is not that we are alone, or that we will die, but that the universe is something so vast, strange, and alien that sanity itself is just a temporary shield against the blinding light of the absolute truth. While we wait for the atoms to dissolve, we might be trapped in a prison of our own making. This is the Kessler syndrome. We are launching thousands of satellites into orbit to connect our world, but we are creating a minefield. If two large satellites collide, they create a cloud of debris. This debris hits other satellites, creating a chain reaction of destruction that wraps the planet in a shell of shrapnel moving at bullet speeds. If this happens, we will be locked on Earth. We will never be able to launch a rocket again without it being shredded. We will be trapped on this rock, cut off from the stars, watching our dreams of space colonization die because we cluttered our own doorway with junk, turning our planet into a cosmic hoarder's house that we can never leave. If we are being dragged, maybe our choices don't matter because they were never ours to begin with. This leads to the theory of superdeterminism. In quantum mechanics, we think particles make random choices. But superdeterminism argues that there is no randomness. It suggests that the universe is conspiring. It proposes that the configuration of the atoms in your brain and the atoms in the particle you are measuring were correlated at the beginning of time. The universe knows what experiment you are going to do before you do it, and it rigs the result. This means that science itself might be a lie, a puppet show where the universe pulls the strings to make us think we are discovering laws, when in reality we are just playing out a script that allows for no deviation and no true knowledge. This lack of control extends to the very foundation of our logic. We assume that intelligence is a good thing, an evolutionary advantage. But the theory of the dead internet suggests that intelligence eventually kills itself with noise. We see this now with AI generating content. As bots create more content, they train on their own bad data, creating a feedback loop of nonsense. Apply this to the galaxy. Perhaps civilizations don't die from war, but from epistemological collapse, the destruction of knowledge. They create so much fake information, so many simulations, and so much noise that they lose track of what is real. They retreat into fantasy worlds and virtual delusions, severing their connection with physical reality, effectively going insane as a species because they drowned in their own data. Now, we must face the terror management theory. This psychological theory suggests that everything humans have ever achieved, art, religion, science, nations, is nothing more than a defense mechanism against the paralyzing fear of death. We build skyscrapers and write books to create a symbol of immortality because our brains cannot handle the reality of non-existence. This implies that culture is just a mass delusion, a collective blanket we hide under to avoid looking at the void. If humans ever truly accepted their mortality, civilization might collapse instantly, because the engine driving our progress is not hope, but sheer, primal panic. But if we strip away the fear of death, we are left with the hunger for growth, and we categorize our potential future using the Kardashev scale. This is a method of measuring a civilization's technological advancement based on the amount of energy it can use. We are currently a Type 0 civilization. We burn dead plants and split atoms, barely harnessing the energy of our own planet. A Type 1 civilization controls all the energy of its home planet, controlling the weather and earthquakes. A Type 2 civilization harnesses the total energy of its star, perhaps by building a massive shell called a Dyson sphere around the Sun to capture every photon of light. A Type 3 civilization controls the energy of its entire galaxy. The horror lies in the fact that we have looked at millions of galaxies, and we see no signs of Dyson spheres, no stars blinking out because they are being enclosed, and no galaxies giving off the waste heat of a Type 3 empire. This absence suggests that no one ever makes it that far, and the silence of the universe is the graveyard of those who tried to become gods and failed. And if the hard drive glitches, we experience the Mandela effect. Millions of people share false memories, like remembering a movie that never existed or a logo looking different than it actually does. Psychologists call this confabulation, but the fringe theory suggests these are residue from timelines that have merged or shifted. If the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics is true, and universes are constantly branching and merging, we might be sliding between slightly different realities without noticing. The you that remembers the old logo is from a timeline that no longer exists, stranded here in a reality that is 99% similar, but just wrong enough to feel uncanny, suggesting that history itself is not solid, but a fluid that can be rewritten while we are still swimming in it. But if we assume that our consciousness has always existed, we might be ignoring the terrifying history of our own minds. The theory of the bicameral mind, proposed by Julian Jaynes, suggests that humans were not conscious until very recently, perhaps as late as 3,000 years ago. Before that, ancient humans did not have an internal monologue or a self. Instead, their brains were divided. One half spoke commands, and the other half obeyed. When an ancient warrior heard a voice telling him to attack, he didn't think "I should attack," he hallucinated the voice of a god or a king commanding him. This implies that the great ancient civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the builders of the pyramids, were created by biological robots who were essentially schizophrenic, acting on auditory hallucinations without any true self-awareness. Consciousness as we know it is not a feature of biology, but a cultural invention, a breakdown of the divine voices that left us alone in the silence of our own heads. While we struggle with the voices in our heads, we must also contend with the ground beneath our feet, which may not be the nurturing mother we think it is. The Gaia hypothesis says Earth creates conditions for life, but the opposing media hypothesis argues that life is self-destructive. It suggests that complex life inevitably triggers its own destruction. The first microbes on Earth poisoned the atmosphere with oxygen, killing nearly everything else. Plants caused global cooling that led to ice ages. We are not killing the planet is a system that naturally swings toward mass extinction because life is a chaotic force that destabilizes the environment. In this view, Mother Nature is not trying to protect us, she is trying to return to a sterile, quiet equilibrium, and we are just the latest infection she is running a fever to burn out. If biology is unstable, perhaps the advanced civilizations have realized that the universe itself is currently uninhabitable, leading to the Aestivation hypothesis. Computing power generates heat, and computers run more efficiently in the cold. Right now, the universe is relatively hot because of the cosmic microwave background and burning stars. An ancient, superintelligent civilization might calculate that it is inefficient to process data now. Instead, they have put themselves into a massive, cosmic hibernation, sleeping for billions of years, waiting for the universe to expand and cool down. The reason we see no aliens is that they are all asleep in their sarcophagi, waiting for the stars to die so they can wake up and use the freezing void to think at maximum efficiency. We are the noisy insects buzzing around in the heat of the afternoon, unaware that the giants are sleeping until winter comes. But if they wake up in the future, can they change the past? We spoke of retrocausality, but the bootstrap paradox creates a loop with no origin. Imagine a time traveler goes back to the past and gives a young Shakespeare the complete works of Shakespeare. The young man copies them and becomes famous. But the question remains, who wrote the plays? The time traveler got them from the future Shakespeare, and the past Shakespeare got them from the time traveler. The plays exist without ever having been created by anyone. This implies that objects, information, and even people can exist in the universe without an origin, trapped in a self-sustaining loop of causality where the beginning is just a myth we tell ourselves to make sense of time. And time itself becomes the ultimate torture device when we approach the edge of a black hole. Due to gravitational time dilation, if you were to fall into a black hole while looking backward at the universe, you would see the light from the outside world speeding up. As you cross the event horizon, you might witness the entire future history of the universe playing out in fast forward. You would see stars born and die, galaxies collide, and the cosmos fade into darkness, all in a matter of seconds from your perspective. You would take the secret of the universe's end with you into the singularity, the only witness to the total history of existence, crushed by gravity before you could ever whisper what you saw. And if we look inward instead of outward, we find the fractal universe theory. We are taught that atoms are different from solar systems, but visually, they are strikingly similar, a heavy nucleus surrounded by orbiting bodies. This theory proposes that the universe is infinite in scale, both going up and going down. Every atom in your body is a microscopic solar system, perhaps with tiny planets and tiny civilizations living on electrons, experiencing time at a speed we cannot comprehend. Conversely, our entire solar system is just a single atom in the fingernail of a gargantuan being in a higher universe. We are not living in a unique reality, we are just one layer of an infinite Russian nesting doll, and the stars above us are merely the glowing particles of a much larger world's chemistry. This connection across scales might also exist across minds, through a concept called morphic resonance, proposed by Rupert Sheldrake. We assume memories are stored in the brain, like files on a hard drive. But this theory suggests that memory is a field, like a radio signal, that exists outside the body. When a rat in a laboratory in London learns a new trick, rats in a laboratory in New York seem to learn it faster, even with no physical contact. The theory argues that there is a collective memory for every species. When you learn something, you are uploading it to the cloud, and others can download it. This implies that your private thoughts might not be private at all, but are constantly leaking into a shared psychic atmosphere, influencing the dreams and instincts of people you have never met. But what if there is no one else to influence? We return to the horror of other minds with the concept of the philosophical zombie. You know that you are conscious, you feel pain, love, and the color red. But you have absolutely no way to prove that anyone else feels these things. Everyone around you could be a P-zombie, a biological machine that acts perfectly human, screams when you hit it, and laughs when you tell a joke, but is completely dark inside. There is no ghost in the machine. If this is true, you are the only light in a universe of walking corpses, surrounded by sophisticated biological puppets that are merely simulating affection and anger to blend in with the only true soul in existence. And if you are the center of experience, the universe might physically revolve around you, violating everything we know about cosmology. This is the mystery of the axis of evil. The Copernican principle states that Earth is not special, we are in a random corner of space. But when we look at the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, we see a strange alignment. The hot and cold spots of the universe seem to be aligned with Earth's ecliptic and equinoxes. The biggest structures in the universe point directly at us. Scientists call this the axis of evil because it shouldn't exist. It suggests that Earth is, in some terrifying geometric way, the actual center of the universe, and the entire cosmos was laid out with us as the focal point, hinting that the Church was right and science has been wrong about our insignificance all along. While we stare at the alignment, we also hear a sound that shouldn't be there, known as the space roar. In 2006, NASA launched a balloon to listen for the faint radio waves from the first stars. They expected silence or a gentle hum. Instead, they heard a roar, a radio signal 6 times louder than anything the universe should be able to produce. It is omnipresent, coming from everywhere at once, drowning out the faint signals we are trying to detect. It is not stars, it is not gas, and it is not galaxies. It is a scream of energy with no known source. Is it the machinery of the simulation humming? Is it the sound of a parallel universe rubbing against ours? Or is it the noise of something massive moving in the dark that we are too deaf to hear properly? And we must confront the possibility that our collective mind is already affecting reality, as suggested by the Global Consciousness Project. Researchers have placed random number generators, RNGs, all over the world. These machines essentially flip electronic coins, producing random zeros and ones. But during massive global events, like 9/11 or the death of Princess Diana, the machines stop being random. They start producing patterns, organized numbers, moments before the event even happens. This implies that human consciousness is a force of physics. When billions of us focus on a tragedy or a celebration, we create a shockwave in the noosphere that bends the laws of probability. We are not just observers of the future, our collective fear and hope are actively rippling backward in time, warning the machines of the trauma that is about to come. But if we assume that our future is determined by our own consciousness, we must also consider the terrifying possibility that the universe has a weapon pointed at our heads that we cannot see. This is the threat of gamma-ray bursts. These are the most powerful explosions in the universe, caused by the collapse of massive stars. They focus all their energy into a tight beam, like a cosmic sniper rifle. If a star within a few thousand light-years of Earth were to collapse and its beam happened to be pointed at us, we would have no warning. The radiation travels at the speed of light, so we would not see the flash before it hit us. It would strip away our ozone layer instantly, frying the planet with ultraviolet radiation, killing the plankton in the oceans, and starving the entire food chain. We could be in the crosshairs of a dying star right now, and the bullet is already halfway here, invisible and unstoppable until the moment the sky catches fire. While we fear the darkness of black holes and the fire of stars, there might be a bright opposite that creates rather than destroys. Einstein's equations allow for the existence of white holes. A black hole swallows matter and never lets it out, a white hole spits matter out and never lets it in. It is a time-reversed black hole. Some theories suggest that the Big Bang itself was just a massive white hole exploding into existence, spewing out all the matter that had been swallowed by a black hole in a parent universe. This implies that we are the vomit of a dead star from another dimension, and that somewhere in the universe, there are fountains of pure creation that we have yet to find because they are disguised as the violent births of galaxies. But if we are looking for scars from other universes, we might have found a bruise. In the map of the cosmic microwave background, there is a massive region that is significantly colder than the rest of the universe, known as the CMB cold spot. Statistics say this spot is too big and too cold to exist by chance. The wildest, yet mathematically possible, explanation is that our universe is a bubble floating in a higher dimensional fluid, and eons ago, we collided with another bubble universe. The cold spot is the impact crater, the bruised tissue of reality where another cosmos slammed into ours, leaving behind a permanent chill that proves we are drifting in a crowded and chaotic multiverse ocean. Let us turn our gaze from the cosmos to the chemicals in our own blood. How did humans become so much smarter than apes so quickly? The stoned ape theory proposes a radical answer. It suggests that early hominids descended from the trees and started eating psilocybin mushrooms growing in the dung of cattle. The psychedelic compounds in the mushrooms rewired their brains, promoting new neural pathways, forced language development to describe the hallucinations, and dissolved the ego, creating the first spark of self-reflection and religion. This implies that human consciousness is not a sober evolutionary advantage, but a permanent, inherited hallucination caused by a symbiotic relationship with a fungus, meaning that everything we call culture is just a trip that never ended. But if our minds are just chemical reactions, perhaps our ultimate fate is not exploration, but addiction. This is the theory of wire-heading, or the pleasure trap. We assume advanced civilizations expand to the stars. But what if they find it easier to manipulate their own brains? Once a species understands neuroscience, they can stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain directly, giving themselves infinite bliss without doing any work. They would have no reason to build spaceships or contact us. They would simply retreat into a digital or biological pod, pump themselves full of eternal dopamine, and let their civilization rot in a state of euphoric coma. The silence of the universe might be because everyone else figured out how to hack their own happiness and stopped caring about the outside world. However, if they are not hiding in pleasure, they might be hiding in plain sight as the very laws of physics. This is the concept of cozy catastrophe. We look for biological aliens, but a sufficiently advanced civilization might rewrite the laws of nature to suit their needs. They might turn themselves into neutrinos or dark matter to avoid the energy costs of being solid. They might have adjusted the gravitational constant of the universe to make stars burn longer. This suggests that what we call physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the speed of light, are not natural laws, but the exhausted waste products or the architectural scaffolding of an intelligence so ancient that its technology has become indistinguishable from nature itself. But if nature is artificial, perhaps we are just crops. This leads to the darkest esoteric theory known as the Loosh energy hypothesis. This theory suggests that humans are livestock, but not for meat. We are farmed for our emotional energy. It proposes that higher dimensional beings, sometimes called archons, feed off the low vibrational energy produced by fear, suffering, anxiety, and war. This is why the world is constantly in chaos. The farmers are stressing the herd to produce more food. Every war, every tragedy, and every moment of heartbreak is just a harvest for invisible parasites that live in the spaces between our dimensions, feeding on our pain like vampires drinking blood. If we try to escape this farm, we might run into the impenetrable wall of the light-speed barrier. We assume that one day we will break the speed of light and travel to the stars. But what if the speed of light is not just a limit, but a quarantine enforcement? The theory of the cosmic cage suggests that the speed of light is set exactly slow enough to prevent civilizations from ever meeting. The distances are too vast and the speed is too slow. We are effectively in solitary confinement. The universe is designed to isolate consciousness, ensuring that every civilization is born, lives, and dies in its own tiny pocket of space, never knowing if anyone else exists, protecting the multiverse from the spread of a single dominant species. But if we assume that the emptiness of space is uniform, we are ignoring the gaping hole known as the Boötes void. This is a region of space nearly 330 million light-years across that is terrifyingly empty. Statistically, it should contain thousands of galaxies, but we have found fewer than 60. It is a supervoid, a darkened room in the house of the universe. If the Milky Way were inside the Boötes void, we would not have known other galaxies existed until the 1960s. We would have thought we were truly alone in an infinite darkness. Some theories suggest this isn't just a natural gap, but the footprint of a Type 3 civilization that is expanding, consuming stars and galaxies for energy, and leaving a sphere of total darkness in its wake. We might be looking at a Dyson sphere empire that has already eaten a chunk of the universe, and it is slowly growing toward us. While we look for monsters in the dark, we might be ignoring the monster in our own backyard. This is the Nemesis star theory. Paleontologists have noticed that mass extinctions on Earth happen like clockwork, roughly every 26 million years. Why? The theory suggests that our Sun has a twin, a failed star or a brown dwarf, that orbits us at a great distance, far beyond Pluto. Every 26 million years, this Death Star passes through the Oort cloud, the shell of icy debris surrounding our solar system. Its gravity knocks billions of comets loose, sending them raining down toward Earth, causing an apocalypse. We might be living in a binary star system, but our twin is a dark, invisible killer that is currently swinging back around for its next scheduled visit. And if we look at the scars on our planet, we might find evidence that this isn't the first time we've faced extinction, but from our own hands. The ancient nuclear war hypothesis suggests that human civilization has risen and fallen before, reaching atomic capabilities in the distant past. In places like the Libyan desert, we find vast sheets of glass formed by extreme heat, similar to the sand fused by modern nuclear tests. In the ancient ruins of Mohenjo-Daro in Pakistan, scientists have found skeletons holding hands in the streets, as if struck dead instantly, with radiation levels comparable to Hiroshima. The ancient texts of the Mahabharata describe projectiles charged with all the power of the universe and explosions brighter than 1,000 suns. We might be stuck in a loop of amnesia, building civilizations, nuking ourselves back to the Stone Age, and forgetting it all, only to repeat the mistake thousands of years later. But the strangest object in our history is the one hanging right above our heads. The spaceship moon theory argues that the moon is mathematically impossible. It is 400 times smaller than the Sun, but it is 400 times closer to Earth, which is why they appear exactly the same size during an eclipse. The odds of this happening by chance are astronomical. Furthermore, when NASA crashed a module into the moon in 1969, their instruments recorded that the moon rang like a bell for over an hour, suggesting it is hollow or has a metallic shell under the dust. Combined with its shallow craters and strange orbit, some speculate that the moon is not a natural object, but an ancient, camouflaged space station parked in orbit to stabilize our planet or to monitor the species evolving below. If the moon is a station, perhaps Saturn is the mainframe. The Saturn cube theory revolves around the impossible hexagonal storm at Saturn's north pole. It is a perfect six-sided shape, larger than Earth, that has been spinning for decades. In nature, fluids don't form geometric corners. Occultists and fringe theorists link this to the black cube symbolism found in ancient religions, suggesting that Saturn is a massive frequency generator. The theory claims that the rings of Saturn are amplifiers, broadcasting a signal that projects the matrix of our reality, locking us into the illusion of time and space. In this view, the planet is not a gas giant, but a piece of colossal machinery that keeps our consciousness trapped in the third dimension. And within this dimension, time might not be flowing steadily, but accelerating. The time wave zero theory, developed by Terence McKenna, argues that time is a fractal wave. As we move forward, novelty or complexity increases, and time effectively compresses. This is why history seems to be moving faster. It took millions of years to get from stone tools to farming, thousands to get to industry, and only decades to get to the internet and AI. The theory predicts that we are approaching a point of infinite complexity, a singularity where history itself collapses, and all possible events happen simultaneously. We are rushing toward a vertical wall of time where the human experience will be fundamentally transformed or ended, merging into a state of pure information. And we cannot trust the past, we cannot even trust the logic we use to analyze it. This brings us to the ultimate prison of the mind, Gödel's incompleteness theorems. In 1931, mathematician Kurt Gödel proved that in any logical system like mathematics or physics, there will always be true statements that cannot be proven within that system. To prove them, you have to step outside the system. But we cannot step outside the universe. This implies that there are truths about our reality, how it started, what it is, why we are here, that we are fundamentally, mathematically forbidden from ever knowing. We are characters in a video game trying to read the source code from the inside. It is not just difficult, it is impossible. We are locked in a box of logic that has no door, forever searching for answers that exist beyond the limits of our programming. So where does this leave us? We have looked at the darkness of the forest, the silence of the aliens, the cold math of the simulation, and the violent end of the stars. It seems we are small, fragile, and terrified. But there is one final theory that turns this terror upside down, the theory of the self-observing universe. In the beginning, there was nothing. Then, hydrogen gas formed. Then, stars. Then, planets. Then, life. Then, eyes. And finally, a brain that could ask, "What am I?" You are not a stranger in the universe. You are the universe. You are the mechanism by which the cosmos knows itself. When you look at the stars, it is not a human looking at a ball of gas, it is the universe looking at itself through a billions of years old lens. We are the waking dream of the void. This brings us to the ultimate conclusion, the philosophy of absurdism. We crave meaning in a meaningless universe. The tension between our desire for answers and the universe's silence is the absurd. But as Albert Camus suggested, we should not despair. We should accept the chaos. The fact that we exist at all, on this tiny, wet rock, spinning in a hostile void, surrounded by black holes and silence, is the greatest defiance imaginable. We are the anomaly. We are the glitch that feels love. We are the dust that learned to dream. Whether we are a simulation, a hologram, a brain in a jar, or the dying memory of a god, it does not change the fact that right now, in this fleeting second, we are here. We are the only light in the dark. And perhaps the silence of the universe is not empty, perhaps it is holding its breath, waiting to see what we will do next. Simply that the universe is a story that wants to be told, and for as long as we are here asking the questions, the story will never end. We have looked into the face of the abyss. We have seen the vacuum decay that could erase us in a heartbeat, the dark forest filled with silent hunters, and the cold probability that we are merely boltzmann brains hallucinating a life that never existed. It is easy to feel small. It is easy to feel like a mistake, a fleeting glitch in a cold, dead machine. But consider this final possibility. If the universe is a simulation, we are the code. If it is a dream, we are the dreamers. And if it is a lonely, dying void, then we are the only part of it that has ever learned to feel, to love, and to fear. We are the universe's way of experiencing itself. When you look up at the night sky, you are not a human looking at the stars. You are the universe, looking back at your own reflection after billions of years of darkness. Perhaps we are trapped in a cage of light and gravity. Perhaps there is no escape from the heat, death, or the eternal return. But right now, in this impossible, fleeting second, we are here. We are the anomaly. We are the light in the dark. So, let the silence of the void be heavy. Let the stars be indifferent. We will keep watching. We will keep asking. And until the lights go out, we will keep dreaming. This is Kryptovoid. Thank you for watching.